Hello, hello. I'm back again on your screens. You can't get rid of me. Anyway, I am Virginia Milner here for the DeKalb County Library. And I'm cold, so you get this wonderful scarf so that I can stay warm. Anyway, I wanted to do something for the guys. Now I say that and I crack up because I know full well that I may as well just say it's unisex, because I had one of my participants tell me she was going to make something for her husband for Father's Day. She was going to make him wear it on Father's Day, and then she was going to take it back and keep it for herself. So I know full well that's probably what happens a lot of times, but I did not want to forget our male counterparts. I get questions about making things all the time, and you know that I've sporadically put in some things for the guys that are actually unisex, because we're going to wear them too. But I wanted to do something today for the guys just because, and it is really translatable. You can make it a little less masculine looking and turn it into something more feminine and appropriate for you. But this is a very good one that you can make for guys, and I think that they would like it. I just kind of showed it to some guys and they liked it. So, or gave them the drawing of it because I hadn't done it yet, and they thought it was a go. So we're doing it. And usually what I do when I'm doing these videos is I will do part of it on camera, and then I'll go off camera to do the rest of it. Well, this time I did it backwards. I did one half of the bracelet off camera already, and then we'll do the rest on camera. Aren't I clever? So anyway, here is half of our bracelet, and what you're going to need is a donut shaped bead. And this one, I got a really pretty big sized one that'll just sit there as a focal bead. And then I wanted to do something, again, we're Black History Month, so I wanted to do something in some African inspired colors. So here we've got half of the bracelet. You can kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like. I don't know if I'm doing a very good job of giving you an idea, but anyway, there we go. Yeah, an idea of what it's going to look like if I can get that centered. If I center it, then you can't see the sides. There's the side, and there's the front. We'll get a better view when it's finished. And so I wanted to do that because I've seen this kind of a wrap just all the way across, but I wanted to do something a little different and give you a way to use these donut beads in something other than a pendant. So that's what we're going to do with this. I just thought it was such a fun idea, and I'm really excited to get started. So let's get started. What you're going to need, I used 22 gauge wire all the way through for this one. Did I? Yes, all the way through for this one, except for the clasp. I would go up to 20 for that. And when I say up to, you're going up in gauge, and the higher the gauge, excuse me, the higher the gauge, the stronger the wire. So 20 gauge wire is stronger than the 22 gauge wire. So this 22 gauge is nice and flexible. The 20 gauge is also flexible, but nice and strong. So let's do it. We've got our 22 gauge wire. We're going to need 20 gauge wire for the clasp. We're also going to need a selection of beads, and that depends on how big your wrist is and what size beads you use. I'm using 12 millimeter because it's got guy's wrist. I wanted to be able to spread it pretty well. What else do we need? We need, so really that's all you need for the bracelet itself. Your focal bead donut, your wire, 2 sizes, and your beads. That's it. And then you're going to use have your usual tools, your round nose pliers, square pliers, cutters, and I'm also using these flat pliers. And it's just for one little part of it. You don't have to use these. You can use your fingernail, but I know people are really hesitant about using their nails on something like this in case we damage them. And I understand that. So I'm using it. You don't have to. We're just using it to put a little bend in the wire, and you can easily do that without the pliers. But in the meantime, let's get going so we can get this bracelet made. Let me get you down here to the camera where you can see what's happening. So, as far as the wire is concerned, again, you need to determine how big you want your bracelet to be. If you have a 7.5 inch wrist, you want to say 7 inches and then take half of it, 7.5 inches, take a ½ inch off of it to accommodate your clasp, because that's about how much the clasp is going to take up. So when you cut your wire, if you have a 7.5 inch wrist and you need so you need a full 7 inches after you take your ½ inch off. You're going to be folding this, doubling this basically over your focal bead and stretching it out. So you're going to need 3.5 inches on each side for your wrist, to go around your wrist. So what you need to do is double that into the full amount. So if I need 3.5 inches on half of my bracelet, I need 7 inches. And then I need to add an additional, I'd say 1.5 to 2 inches to accommodate the fact that it's going to be going around these beads, and you need to be able to put your clasp on, attach your clasp to something at the end. So again, if you have a 7.5 inch wrist, take that down to 7 inches, divide that by 2 for each side. So that would be 3.5 inches, and add an additional 2 inches, which would make it 5.5 inches of wire for each side. Okay, I hope that's clear. So I've got my wire cut. You're going to need 3 pieces of wire, all the same size to start with. So I've got my 3 pieces of wire. And what I'm going to do is thread it through and through the donut. So I want to fold that in half. Bring my ends together. Find my halfway point. Bead board for that, or a ruler, just to find my halfway point. There we go. And then I'm going to take my little flat pliers here. And again, you don't have to use these. You can just fold it with your hands. And I'm going to thread that through my focal bead. Oh, I'm off camera. I'm sorry. Hope you saw that. Fold it in half and thread it through my focal. Okay, so there we go. Threaded. I'm going to fold it down over my focal bead. And now I want to make sure that my wires are side by side. I don't want them bunched up on top of each other. They need to be side by side. And now I'm going to start wrapping, because I'm going to wrap here before I put the first bead on. Again, making sure that my wires are side by side. I'm going to take a piece of my wire. And I just cut a long piece and then cut more as I need it to do my wrapping. And what I'm going to do is bend my wire so that I just have a little tail. I'm going to bring that over my 3 pieces of wire. Just going to fold that over. There we go. And then you can take your pliers to hold it, or you can hold it with your fingers. That first wrap is the most challenging because it's going to want to shift and move, and you want to make sure that your wires are flat and not bunched up. So give that a good pull. Here we go. First wrap, and then I'll take my pliers and just give it a little squeeze so that it's nice and tight against my 3 wires. Give it another wrap, and with each wrap, I like to squeeze it down. Let's flip it over, see what's going on over there. Push my little rings together. Let's give it another wrap. And I'm just going to give it 4 wraps. Grab my pliers. Squeeze it down. And let's give it 1 more wrap. Again, making sure that my wires are still flat. Okay, 1 more wrap around. Squeeze. And there's my first one. Nice and tight. Okay, now what I'm going to do is cut off the tail along what I'm calling the back side. So this is my back. So I'm going to cut that off. So that it ends up on the back side. Clamp that down. Nice and snug. Making sure that my wires are still side by side. And then cut off the long tail. And then push those down, that end down as well. Okay, so there's my first wrap. And now I'm ready to put a bead on. So the first thing that I need to do is separate out my wires. Because, oh, one thing that you need to make sure of with this particular design is that you have beads with holes enough for 2 strands to go through. That's one of the reasons that I chose 22 gauge wire, because it will go through the beads that I chose. And it's big enough. It's big enough and secure enough. And I'm using wooden beads, so they have a fairly large hole. So what I'm going to do now is separate the 2 wires closest to one side out to the side, and the same on the other side. And then I have 2 wires in the center. And that's where I'm going to put my first bead. Now on the other side, I started with red. So we're going to do the same thing on this side. Start with a red bead and slide that on like that. And then I'm going to take one of the wires on one side, the one that's closest to the bead, and I'm going to bring it around. Just bring it around the bead till it wraps nice and close. And then you can either use your pliers or your fingers to squeeze to create a little indentation right there beside the bead. So you can see this is a little indented. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, the wire that's closest to the bead. Bring that around. Give it a little squeeze. And I'm holding the wires up beside the bead as I do this. Just give it a little squeeze on the side. Here we go. So I have my first little indent. And now I want to do the same thing with the second wire. Now this wire is going to go around the first wire. We don't want to, we want it to be separate. We don't want it to be on top of that first wire. We want it to land beside the first wire. So there we go, and I'm keeping it away from on top of it. And you can use your pliers to kind of hold it in place and then make your indent, your indentation. And to do this on camera is so much fun. There we go. So I have a nice little indentation. I have my 2 wires on one side. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Bring that wire beside, second wire beside the first wire. Give it a little indentation. And there we go. So let's check this out. My wires are side by side. There we go. See if that's clear here. Yeah, there we go. There's the 2 wires here and the 2 wires over here and the wires down the middle of my bead. And now it's time to wrap. And the easiest way to do that is to hold this either with my fingers or with my pliers, just to make sure that all my wires are separate. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And they're just resting beside each other. Nice and easy. I'm going to pick up my wrapping wire, put a fold in it. Slide it on my other wires. Again, checking to make sure everything's side by side. And just like with the first one, the first wrap is the biggest challenge. So get that on there. Give it a little squeeze. And you can do this with your fingers or with your pliers. Just want to get it as close together as I can before I start my wrapping. I'm going to flip it around this way. Come back. Come back. All right, there we go. Everything is nicely side by side. And let's give it a wrap. Once I get that first wrap started, it's kind of a piece of cake after that, but it's getting the first one. Oh, you know what? I'm going to anchor it down here. And pull. All right. So I got that on there. And now what I want to do is check and make sure my wires are side by side. I'll take my pliers and just push down. And you can see that they're all nicely spread out. And now I can take my pliers and squish down my wire, my wrapping wire, so it's a little tighter. Here we go. There's several things you have to be aware of. You want to make sure that your wires are side by side, not stacked. You want to make sure that your wrapping wire is nice and tight. And you want to keep those rings as close together as you can. So you want to give it a little squeeze with your pliers every once in a while. So I have one wrap. Let's go to my second wrap. And my third wrap. Give it a squeeze. And one more wrap with the short tail. Make sure that's nice and tight. I'm going to give it a tug. Just give it a good pull. I know you're getting radio silence here because I'm concentrating. Okay, here we go. Let's give it another wrap. Nice and tight. Give it a squeeze. And we're good. So let's bring it around to the back side. Long tail and short tail. Let's check the back. Squeeze it down. And let's cut. Cut off my excess wire, nice and close to the rings. Let's push that down. Good. Let's cut off my long tail. And don't worry if it slides a little bit, because once you get your other beads on, it's going to hold that in place. We're going to tighten it up a little bit. Cut that off. Squeeze it down. So that it's nice and flat. Here we go. All right, so we've got one bead in place. Let's go on to the next one. Let's again identify my wires, the outside wires. Okay, the inside wires, very good. All right, let's put our next bead on, which is the green one. And again, let's locate the closest wire to the bead. Bring it around the bead. Same thing on the other side. Closest wire. Wrap that around. And then do the same with the second one. Bring that around beside the first wire. On the outside of the first wire. And there we go. And give it a little squeeze. And get our wrapping wire. Make sure that's nice and close. Nicely enveloped. And let's get our wrapping wire. Let's get that encased. Fold my wire. There we go. Let's attach it. And let's get our first wrap in there, the challenging one. And one way that you can do this that might make it a little easier is to hold tail and squeeze the loop, pull it with the other hand, kind of pushing it and pulling it at the same time. Squeeze, squeeze it together. All right, And now, got my first wrap. Squeeze that down. Let's make my second wrap. Squeeze. Oh, let's make sure my rings are together nice and tight. And then squeeze it down. Third wrap. I'm going to check because these look like they're awfully tight. So I'm going to take my pliers and make sure that my wires are side by side and not on top of each other. There we go. Same on the other side. Don't want to lose your design. And one more wrap. And cut it off on the back. Squeeze it down. Nice and close. Push my rings together. And let's clip it. You can get in there. Okay. Let's push down my end. And clip the other one. Somehow or another, this strung itself through to the other side. No can do. Get that off. It does not want to go. Well, you gotta. You're out of there. Push that down. Check my wires again. Make sure they're the way I want them. And we have one more. Spread these out. Sides. Scoot this up just a little bit. Okay, spread my wires out. 2 left wires, 2 right wires, 2 center wires. Slide my bead on. Okay, wrap closest wire. On each side. And my second wire around the first wire. A little indent. And let's do our wrap. Here we go. And I need more wire because I used up the last of it. My little bend. I like to get it as close as I can get it, so I don't have to worry about squeezing it and holding all of these other wires at the same time, because that is a pain in the neck. Okay, let me get my well back together here, my little indentations. Really good. There we go. Separating the wires out. Yeah. Side by side and down the middle. Let's put my wrapping wire on. And let's do it. Again, that first wrap is the most challenging. Get on there. Pull it tight. I can hold on. Now I have something to hold on to. I can hold on to my beads, hold on to one end of my wire, and pull with the pliers on the other end to get it tight. See? Neat. Flatten it. Make sure my wires are going where I want them. Nice and tight. Flatten it out. Give it another wrap. Flatten it out. Wrap. And flatten. Let's get it nice and tight. Push my rings together. Okay, one more wrap. And flatten. Push my rings together. It's just a very repetitive process. Push those rings together again. Check. Make sure everything's going the way it should go. This one got a little discombobulated. Okay, there we go. Yes. Down, and we are ready to clip. Secure it a little bit tighter, and let's take it off on the back. Crunch up those rings. There we go. And we're ready to clip. The longest tail, the longer of the two tails. And squeeze that down. It's easier to squeeze it from the back. And then clip the other side, the other end. This is the shorter tail. Scarf is falling off. Okay, squeeze that down. There we go. Yay. Now remember I said make sure you give yourself a good extra 1.5 to 2 inches. I gave myself 1.5 inches. See how little I have left because I was being stingy. I have just enough to do what I need to do. Yay. So now we've got the beaded portion of our bracelet finished. As you can see, we'll shape that in a bit. And now I want to cut all of my extended wires down to one nice even size. Yeah, I'm not even going to try to do that all at the same time. Just clip it, clip off those little ends. And now all I really need, because now I'm going to make a little loop that will accommodate my clasp. So all I really need on the end here is about 1/4 inch. That's it. 1/2 inch at the most, and that depends. If you want to expand it a little bit more because you need you want to let your bracelet a little looser, it just depends on your fit. But we just need enough so that I can go in with my pliers and make a loop that will hold my clasp. And this is going to be too long. This is a good 3/4 inch. All I need is about 1/4 inch, because I'm going to go right there. I'm going to make a loop. It's going to be about that size. So I'm going to cut that down to about 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8 at the most. Cut that down. All nice and even. Okay, so now I've probably got a good 1/2 inch here. What I want to do is, again, separate out my wires out to the sides, 3 on each side. 3 and 3. Now I'm going to measure, because I only want enough to roll a loop. This is about 1/2 inch. I need about 1/4 inch. So I'm going to snip that down about half. Yes. So you can see where I did it on the other side. It's about 1/4 inch. 3/8 if you want it bigger. It's up to you. I'm going with my 1/4. I just want to cut each of these lengths down to the same size. And I'm going to take my pliers, my round nose pliers, and I'm going to make a loop out of all 6 of them. I'm going to do, you can do them individually if you want to make sure that they are perfectly the same size, but this works pretty well. Keep them as close together as you can, because of course your round nose pliers are get gradually smaller and larger. And you want it to be as close to the same size as possible. And now I'm going to make a loop. But I don't want to close it up. I want to leave it open so that I can get my clasp in there. What is that shorter? I don't know. They were all the same. Let's clip that down a little bit. And make my loop. And again, I don't want to close it because I need to get my clasp in there. I made a little bit of a mess of it, didn't I? There we go. One side, the other side, and there's my loop. My loop's on both sides. I'm going to fix this one in the middle because it's drifting. There are my loops. We're going to make them a little neater after we make our clasps. And we're going to make some wide stance clasps. So these are the kinds of clasps that we're going to make so that they'll go right into our little loops that we just made. Okay, so for your clasp, I would suggest that you use 20 gauge wire for your clasp because you just need a little more strength. So for this particular, this side, the loop side, you want about an inch. This comes out to, it ends up being about half an inch. So you want to give yourself about an inch of wire. And then for the hook, you want about an inch and a half of wire. And again, it depends on how long you want it to be, because you may need a longer clasp to accommodate your wrist. Because now would be a good time to try on your bracelet and make sure that it fits. And when I say try on, I mean try it on the guy you're making it for. Ha ha ha, wink, wink. So anyway, what we're going to do is take a round nose pliers or your fingers. You really don't need round nose pliers for this. You just want to fold it in the center into a little U shape. Kind of check, make sure it's even on both sides. Give yourself a little U. Yeah, a little U shape. And now this is a little longer than the other side, so I'm going to clip that little excess off until they're both the same length. And now I'm going to make loops on each side. And I want my loops to be going from side to side, not up and down. So I'm going to go down here about 1/3 of the way down my pliers and make a nice loop. And just roll that around until I close it up. There we go. And I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing. I'll slide that in so I can remember where it needs to go on the other side. Right about there. Let's test it out. Yeah. Right about there. I'll grab the tip of my wire and make a loop on the other side. I like to look at it and see if it looks like it matches. It does. Here's my little loop. All right. So there's my little hook. That's the hook that we're putting on right on one side. Now I'm going to make my other one, which is going to be my my hook. Actually, this is not the hook. This is the receptacle. This is going to be my loop. So now I'm going to make my hook. Is this 1.5 inches? It doesn't look like it. Yeah, it is. Okay. Now I'm going to make another fold in the center. Match up those edges. And squeeze it together until I just have a tiny little opening. Use your pliers for that. Squeeze that. Until we have a small opening there. There we go. That's small enough, I believe. Okay, so now we're going to take our pliers and make a little loop. I'm going to go down about 1/3 of the way down my pliers again, and I'm just going to rotate until I have a little loop. That's it. And then I'm going to go down here to the other side where it's open, and I'm going to make 2 little loops. And the way I want to do that, I'm going to take my pliers and grab my little round part here. Or your fingers, it's up to you. Yeah, because I said you don't really have to have those pliers. And just bend this out to the side just a little bit. Just give it legs. Like it has little legs. And now we're going to make loops towards this inside, towards the center. Third the way down my pliers again. Make a little loop on one side and on the other. I think I made my little loop up here a little larger than I needed. That's okay. That's easily fixable. Scoot it up. Oh, I dropped it. Where'd it go? There it is. Make a loop to the inside. And then turn it around and make a loop to the other inside. Oh, for heaven's sake, I've got fumble fingers today. Sorry about that. Loop to the other inside. This one's a little teeny tiny bit bigger than the other one. Easily fixable. There we go. Got my legs. Get that to work. There's my pliers here. Flatten those out. There we go. So I have my hook and I have my loop. They just go like that. And what I want to do is kind of curve this in just a little bit more. You don't need to close it because you want to be able to fasten it easily enough, but you want it closed enough so that it won't come out. It won't come apart too easily. So there we go. And you give it a little bit of a crick back so that it has something to keep it from sliding out. So there we go. Boop, 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 boop. See? Nice. It has a little lock. Okay. So now we're going to put it on. And it depends on whether you're right-handed or left-handed, or he's right-handed or left-handed as to which side you put it on. But what we're going to do is hook it, take one, squeeze these little rings together, 3 on one side, 3 on the other side. Curve this a little bit more over here. Again, not closing it yet because I have to get my hook and eye on. Okay, so let's slide one side of my hook on 3 of my rings. Get over there. It's easier if I make sure the rings are nicely pushed together. Okay. 3 on one side. Did I close you? Why did I do that? If it's too close to the rings, it's not going to slide on. So there's one side. There's the other side. And let's close it up. I'm going to use my flat pliers. Just kind of squeeze that down so it's nice and close, but I don't want to close up my rings. I want to make sure that the ends are tucked under so that nothing's going to claw at me while I'm wearing this. And yes, I said I because this is mine. There we go. Nicely closed. Still have some movement here, which is what I want. Make sure that's closed. Yes. So there we go. It's nice and secure. There we go. And you can work with this a little bit. I just like to make sure that it's all nicely locked down. Okay, and then the other side, same thing. Make sure it's nice and flat. Slide my one ring on the 3 on one side and the 3 on the other side. Put in there. It's going in 2, and then the other one's going, no. Here we go. And close it up. Okay. Got it? Are we in there? Yes. There we go. Nice. All right. One more little squeeze just to be certain. Nice movement. Nice and secure. There we are. And now we just need to shape it. And I just use things like this. I just use my little jars or whatever I have. If you have a mandrel, good for you, go for it. Otherwise, I just use whatever cylindrical item I've got to shape my bracelet. Just get it started, that, and then I use my fingers for the rest. And there is my bracelet. And again, yes, I said my. Shape that up. There it is. There it is. So awesome. Ta-da! There it is. All right. So that is for you guys. This is for you guys. I hope you like this. I think it's kind of awesome. It's going to keep shaping to get it the way I want it to lay. But yeah, there we are. There we have it. That's kind of neat. I think it looks masculine, don't you? I mean, I think it does. And I mean, you can use whatever beads you want. You don't have to use these beads, but this is what we did. And I personally think this is really neat. So what do you think about that? Think a guy would wear it? I do. I know I'm going to wear it. It's pretty awesome. And really, really easy. It's just repetitive. What you have to do to get it to work. And you don't need very many materials. I'm trying to get to the other camera. Sorry. Here I am. So anyway, that is our bracelet for today. Kind of neat. I like it. Men's stuff is so simple. Very simplistic because they don't like a lot of frills and frou-frou. And, you know, I mean, I don't blame them. Put this back on because I like it. I don't blame them. It's easy to get on and off. You just slide that on, slide that in the little hook, flip it around. And there I have it. I mean, what could be simpler? Get over there. Ta-da. Oh, I said ta-da. I didn't do that all video, and then I just blew it. Anyway, that is it. I hope you liked it. I hope you did. Let me know what you think, especially you guys, or you ladies that are going to give it to a guy. Let me know what you think. Let me know what they think, and we'll be back again next week with something new and fun. So if you have any suggestions on things that you would like to see, just let me know what they are, and I will do my best to accommodate. Meanwhile, have a good weekend, have a great week, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.